So we've got our system needs and requirements document. The next thing is to take that back to our stakeholders and take it back to our company and perform our system design review. Now, this is done at the end of the conceptual system design phase and allows us to create a formal review to check that we've got the requirements right, that the design of the system is progressing well and we're actually designing the right system with the right requirements that suits the real needs of the company. Members of this system design review will investigate the system requirements, specification document, and actually, and through a detailed process, will actually work out if things are right, if things are unreasonable, and if things need to be changed. Typically, these members of our system design review panel will be major stakeholders, and they'll be really asking the question, does this system capture the requirements of our company? There'll probably be requirements that they didn't realize should even be there, like those decomposed or derived requirements that system engineers have come up with, and they'll be able to tick them off as well and say, oh yeah, we didn't actually think about that, we actually need that as well. And that's a useful thing for us to get that feedback to make sure that we're on the right track. This system design review is very important because it demonstrates that the system design is on track and is really on track to meet the needs of the business. And the business will formally approve it and tick it off up to this point and say, yes, we're happy with the progress and we're meeting the requirements and we're actually designing the right system, as opposed to a system that will solve a different problem that the business doesn't actually have. And it also provides proof that the parties have actually carried out their responsibilities in the design process and shows that they're actually putting in the effort that's required to make this system actually work. If the business isn't happy with it at this point, they'll insist that changes are made before they sign off on it. They'll say, you have our requirements wrong. You need to make these changes before we're willing to sign off on it and move through to the preliminary design stage and the detailed design stage and so on. There's no point moving towards the preliminary design stage and the detailed design stage if they're not designing the right thing. And that's really what we want to get through this system design review. Now these changes will be a whole lot more simple to make and a whole lot cheaper to make at this stage. If we get much later, it becomes a whole lot more expensive. Late changes are difficult, involve redesign on things they've already done and involve high costs, whereas early changes are easier and have a much lower cost of change. For example, if we were developing a passenger aircraft and a business was deciding as one of their key requirements, do they want the aircraft to seat 100 people or 200 people? It's a reasonable thing to ask, and there's planes that fit into both those sort of categories. But they lead to vastly different designs. And they'll lead to a whole raft of changes, including the engines that are required, the seating that's required, the size of the cargo hold, the fuel capacity that's required, the catering requirements that's required to cater for twice as many people on board the aircraft. These things need to be known, and you can't just go much later down the stage, well you can, it will cost you a whole lot more money, but it would be foolhardy to do so, to say, oh actually, no, just put double the amount of passengers in. You don't want to head down that path. And so our systems design review is really solidifying what the business objectives are and their requirements, including things like how many passengers they want the plane to actually seat. The number of passengers or space for the passengers is a really fundamental requirement and needs to be agreed at this stage. In the next phase of development, knowing this will save the contractors from redesigning the wrong plane and trying to scale everything up to be double the size. And this sort of failure at this stage could easily extend the project's schedule and budget unnecessarily. If we get right the requirements, our likelihood of success will be much, much higher in compared to getting the wrong requirements and then having to redesign. So once we've passed this system design review, the project will continue on to the next stage in the design process.